Few minutes it won't be live, so here we are. We are live. Hey, I told several people, welcome to the Backyard Professor live, by the way, and it's Saturday afternoon. You wanted a Saturday matinee. I was watching one of John DeLynne's podcasts with Mike and Nemo, and it was over the top outrageous. I have a wonderful guest with me, Benny Hinrich.
Hinrichs.
Hinrich, yeah, whatever.
It rhymes with bin bricks.
I can't say he spells it funny. It's German, but it's not spelled like German. But anyway, we've got a really good show for you, really, truly. Benny and I, and Paul over there, our audience of one. Woohoo! There you go. We met in St. George at Thrive, and we had a blast. Yeah. We did karaoke. These guys came up to me. Paul, actually, I was wasn't I in the lobby? It was in the lobby at a hotel, wasn't it? Yeah.
Just after the bathroom.
It was. And these guys came up to me, and Paul corrals me, and he goes, "Hey, see this guy?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Pay attention." I go, "Pay attention." "Okay, yeah. What do you want?" And he starts talking to me about the Book of Ether in the Book of Mormon. And the more he talked, I wanted to do a live with, didn't I want to do a live with you right there? So anyway, we're a little later. We're a couple of weeks, almost a month or more down the road, and Benny has come to town. So we are going to talk about the Book of Ether and the Book of Mormon in a way I suspect that most of you, my audience, won't have heard of. Benny has very wonderful information and research. So let's get this show on the road and do it. That is really cool. Okay, hey, we're back. Benny was just telling me on that one little slide that has all the spectacular blue-green circles and all the math equations. That's the Schrodinger equation. He's the first one that's let me know that. So you studied physics.
I did, yeah. And what's actually funny is I wanted to graduate a semester early, and so the only way to do that was to take quantum mechanics 2 before 1, because they only taught 2 in the spring and 1 in the fall. So I had to take quantum 2 and then quantum 1, and those were very hard classes.
Yeah,
so
but you did. You passed.
Yeah.
You passed. So see, the interesting thing is we now recognize that you have brought forward the Schrodinger equation, quantum physics, into the Book of Ether in the Book of Mormon. And you guys think I'm kidding. Wait till you see what Benny's got. First, let's say hi to everybody. It looks like I have one comment. Gail Capson, how are you, dear? You're awesome, lady. I'm just saying. Okay, you guys, this is kind of a surprise. I usually do them on Sunday nights, as you know. Yeah. Sunday nights at 6. And tomorrow night, I have a spectacular show lined out. I'm going to be co-hosting with Steve Pinecker of Mormon Book Reviews. He has been called the Switzerland of podcasting because he brings in so many. He's an evangelical. He's not even Mormon, yet he's really in good with all the Mormon scholars and the historians and the physicists and all that. And he has brought together a terrific amount of dialogue between Christians, Mormons, and between Mormons and their church leaders who stupidly continue to hide history from them. There's a lot of historians who are kind of beginning to take our side on this, saying, okay, yeah, we need to be a little bit more transparent, and we're encouraging that. We are hosting Jonathan Neville of the Heartland Geography.
Theory.
Yeah, very interesting. Now I know he's had his ups and downs, his ins and outs with what's her name, the gal who is so adamantly orthodox with Hannah Stoddard,
yeah.
the Stoddards.
Yeah.
And they have tension and conflict. Neville is not a Stoddard fan. Maybe I shouldn't say that too loud. That might get him in hot water, but we will have Jonathan Neville on tomorrow night, and you don't want to miss it. He is very interesting. I spent this whole last week studying a lot of his stuff and watching many videos, interviews with him. So hey, John, welcome. John, meet Benny. Benny, John. Gail, Benny, Gail. Carrie, Benny, Carrie. Paul,
hey,
he's our audience of one. He is the man who is going to keep us on the wide and curvy today. So,
That's how I like my women.
right? So this is intriguing because Benny is a hell of a musician. And he studies physics. He's very good with the piano and the guitar. I'm going to have to do this as a separate. I guess I could do the link that you sent me, huh?
Oh yeah.
Of your song.
I just put out a music video on Friday for my newest song.
He just put out a music video. Would you guys like to see the music video to see the skill and talent this guy can apply to the Book of Mormon? He's going to do an Alma the Younger song soon. Right? No,
we're gonna do
that'd be better
a whole
than
musical. Actually, did you ever hear about? There's like a whole musical that they did on Korihor. So it was based on a novella by B.H. Roberts from like 1890, and it's called. I think it's just called Korihor, Mesoamerican Love Story, or something like that. And anyway, they turned it into a whole musical and made a whole like 10 Commandments style movie out of it in like 1930. And there is a whole
that is so B.H. Roberts.
It's crazy. Well, B.H. Roberts didn't do the musical, he just did the novella, and then somebody else made it into
So you're gonna get in on
I'm writing the sequel right now as we speak.
Fantastic. That's what we want. We want skill and talent to step forward. Come over to my house. I'll put you on a live. I'm telling you, man.
And we're gonna have the premiere of Korihor 2 here at Carrie's house.
We're gonna Korihor all the way, baby. Hey, Tim Rathbone, welcome. Paul Hadlow, welcome. I always like to say hi to everybody.
Good.
I love my audience. They are awesome. Okay, you guys. Let me. I can do that with my. Let's see. We're sharing the screen, aren't we?
Yeah, but I think you have to add.
Yeah, but do I do that to do your song from my email?
Oh, well, if you just want to show it, theoretically, we could just go to YouTube and.
Oh, let's do. We're going to go to YouTube. Hang on. Here we go. YouTube. YouTube. Do you remember the name of it?
I sure do. Do Pink Henrik. Henrik.
Oh, that's not how you spell your last name. Pink Henrik.
Yeah, well, everybody always spells it wrong. So
hey, there you are. Oh, that's it, isn't it?
Just
This one? No.
That's just somewhere there.
Right there. That's the one. So if you play that, my audience is going to see it.
Well, I don't think we're actually sharing the screen yet. So I think we have to come in here.
Oh, yes, we do.
Add to stream.
Yep.
So it's it is sharing the screen, but
I have to do that. Okay, we're back. Scared you, didn't I? My stupid fat
Okay,
fingers.
so now we have
for
to
it.
share the screen again.
Okay, we're gonna hit. Boy, it's a good thing he's here. Holy Shishka and Bob, share the screen. We're gonna do the share the screen.
And then
We
go to
want
window.
this one or this one.
Yeah, window.
Window.
And then StreamYard.
Hopefully the audio output from the
StreamYard.
I hope so.
Hit share.
And then the question is, will it get the audio or not?
Sure it will.
Well,
Let's do it.
and then you have to add it to the stream.
Yeah, I have to add it to the screen, right? So
Yeah,
by
so
clicking on it
the, down.
here.
No.
Here?
Let me drive for a second. Now we flip over here. So now it's on the stream. So this whole window is on the stream now.
My audience is seeing this.
They're seeing it, but I don't know if they'll hear it. That's the question.
They better hear it. Okay, here we go. Just in case it's not, we'll see. Yeah. Are you guys hearing that? They're probably yelling. Can't hear it. It's okay. We can lip read. Really? You couldn't hear it?
Well,
Oh, that's
why we cut it off after one course.
All
We'll just put a link up.
We'll put a link up. We'll put a link in it. Sorry about that. Anyway, it's really good
I
stuff.
hope you liked watching our faces.
Yeah, their faces told them all. So okay. Anyway,
Okay.
it's all good. So let's look at the
Let's get out of the antechamber.
let's get out of the antechamber. We just want to go to your ether, don't we?
Yeah, so you want to add to stream again on the not that one. Yeah, that one, and then flip over to the tab
Over here. Here.
Yes, that one.
Okay, so the question is, can you guys see this? It says Linguistics of Ether. It's in a blue box by Hinrichs.
That was so close, Carrie. I'm so proud.
Heinrich. Look, the point is, I'm going to call you Benny. Tell us if you can read that, you guys, because we can't see us or the chat yet. So
someday we'll get Carrie.
They found it on YouTube already. No audio now, no sound from us. Can you hear us? We should be full blast. Yes, we can hear you too. Okay, they can hear us. Okay, so here we are. You can't hear the, let us know if you can see this part though. We're going to add the stream. Let us know if you can see the ether, Linguistics of Ether.
Somebody said they could. We're going to get Carrie two screens at some point, and then he can have StreamYard on one screen. And then...
sound is good. We can hear and we can see. Okay, awesome. So let's let Benny take over here, and we are going to talk about the Book of Ether. He is. Yeah. Tell us about the linguist.
So the real question
why is this so interesting?
Well, the real question is, if we present the slideshow, can you still see it? I think they should, because it's in the Chrome window still. Let me just
should be.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the Chrome window.
Cool.
Okay, let's get on
done with
this.
all of that. Okay, now we can just drive. Okay, cool. So this is just, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to ever notice this, but I have kind of dug into it a bit. So I just thought that it'd be cool to come and present some of the stuff that I've dug up. So, and just kind of to start in Hugh Nibley's book, Abraham in Egypt, he has this quote right in the first chapter that I always kind of liked. And he's talking about the Book of Abraham, but I think he uses it in a couple other books. And so, he's saying the Book of Abraham, but let's just think about the Book of Ether in this instance. He says, the Book of Abraham can be tested as a diamond is tested, not by inquiring from whence it came, who found it, who owns it, how much it was paid for, where and when, who says it's genuine, and who says it's not, etc., but simply by subjecting it to established and recognized jewelers' tests for diamonds. In short, it is the Book of Abraham, or Ether, that is on trial, not Joseph Smith as an Egyptologist. I don't think that's actually true, but let's just pretend it's true here.
I agree.
Nor the claims and counterclaims to scholarly recognition by squabbling public speakers, nor the provenance.
Ooh, that'd be us.
That's us. We're out of the game. Nor the provenance and nature of Egyptian papyri, nor the competence of this or that person to read them. Okay, so basically he's saying, who cares what's on the papyri? Who cares who
What's
Joseph Smith
plates?
is? Yeah, let's just look at the actual text. And I think that's a great idea. And so that's exactly what's going on here in the Book of Ether. So according to my reckoning, there are 69 names or non-English words in Ether's 15 chapters, and I'm counting Jesus Christ as one name in here.
Okay.
So if we split that into two, because it is two different names, there would be 70. But just so you know my methodology,
69's a good number.
It is a very
for a
nice,
lot of folks.
nice
RFM
number.
would like that number.
Yeah. So, and I have all of this in a table that we're going to look at the very end, but we'll just look at my numbers for the start. 26 of these 69 names, or 38%, also appear exactly in the King James Bible.
38%, that high, huh?
38%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is going to become clear why this is potentially problematic in a moment. Now, additionally, there are 14 or 21% that are one letter off from names in the King James Bible.
Oh, interesting. 21%, one letter off. So perhaps he's trying to make them seem biblical.
Yeah, so
that's the skeptical side.
My thesis here, and we'll get to this a little later in the presentation, is that he basically wants the names to sound more or less like they're from the Old Testament times.
Okay.
That is, so yeah, we got 26 or 38% exactly in the KJV and 14 or 21% one letter off.
Okay.
Therefore, we have 40 or 59% of the names are within one letter of names in the King James Bible.
Okay. Very good.
So to me, that's already kind of a staggering percentage. We basically have 60% of the names, 3 out of every 5 names in the Book of Ether are within one letter of a name in the King James
of actual
Bible.
Names already in the King James.
Yes.
So nothing much inventive going on necessarily, just more or less from a skeptical viewpoint,
right?
Lifting it out of the King James. And
starting with the name Ether, that's
there
just straight in the King James Bible.
Yeah.
And then now, like I said, we'll get into the actual list and you can sort of judge for yourself what you think about these particular comparisons. But I counted an additional 18 or 26% that are pretty similar to names in the King James Bible. Some of them are like 2 letters off, so I couldn't count them in my 1 letter statistic.
Right.
Some of them are a little more speculative. So
now, are you talking about the way they sound or the spelling?
A bit of both.
Bit of both.
Bit of
okay.
both.
All right.
Yeah. So therefore, if we lump all of those together, we have 59 out of 69 or 84% of these names are similar, are either exactly 1 letter off or similar to names in the King James Bible, which leaves us with it's like 10 or 11 or 16% that are not represented, that I could not personally find in the King James Bible. And some of those, interestingly, there was a couple of them that were actually like just straight up Hebrew words.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But they don't appear in the English text of the KJV. So I was like, well, I'm not going to count those, because for my hypothesis, I'm just imagining he has the KJV, and that's what he has.
Fair enough.
Like the most parsimonious interpretation is he had the KJV. Like we know he's at least had access to that, right? During his life.
Even though Farms and Daniel Peterson says he didn't use it.
Well, I think that they say he didn't use it for the translation, but
he definitely read it though. Yeah.
Right. But before that, he's been exposed to it for his entire life.
Yeah.
So even if he, as they say, he didn't have a Bible with him during the translation, like that doesn't negate the like literal decades of reading it before that point. So let's talk about Hebrew for a second, just the Hebrew language. It's a beautiful language.
It is. I enjoy studying it.
You
study it
a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's why we hit it off.
Yeah, here and there, I'll just be like, what is that word in Hebrew? Or I like the website Bible Hub a lot. They have the interlinear texts of the Old Testament and New Testament. So a lot of the time, if I'm in a verse and I'm just like, what is actually going on in this verse, I'll just hop in there and I'll look at the Hebrew words, and it links right to Strong's concordance, which I don't know if you guys have...
dated, but they keep updating it. So in a way, I mean, a purist would say, oh, Strong's, don't waste your time. But they are bringing it up to date with the newer lexicon, so it's still a great source.
Right.
So well, you're okay doing it.
And the nice thing about it is it shows you a link to every single verse that uses that word in the Bible.
Yeah.
So you can see, oh, this word has 36 usages or whatever. And it has the word itself. And then, because, Hebrew words, how they're constructed is they'll put prepositions and stuff, they like agglutinate it onto the word. So you want to they'll add like letters a lot. So like they add a bet.
Do you think they use Elmer's glue to agglutinate?
They might use Emer's glue or Omer's glue or Ether's glue.
Omer's glue. Yeah, that's in ether.
It is. And it says Emer.
There, yeah, Emer's glue.
Yeah.
Dang, they forgot the L. Yeah. That was the one letter off.
Exactly.
We're never going to hear the end of this if we're not careful.
So here's the interesting thing with the Hebrew language. So it is a Semitic language, and right in this area that Hebrew comes from, you have a ton of other Semitic languages. Languages that you think of today as Semitic would be like Arabic. That is the most commonly spoken Semitic language in the world. And obviously Hebrew and Aramaic is still spoken a little bit. There's a few thousand Aramaic speakers. So Hebrew starts to kind of distinguish itself from this group of what would later become several other languages around 1200 BC. And so that's just like quoting what scholars currently think.
Okay.
So, maybe they'll find more data to update that at some point, but currently that is our best knowledge.
Okay.
And the first actual attestation of Hebrew is right from around 1000 BCE.
Okay.
They have I think it's a stele. And so at that time, so the letters that you think of as Hebrew letters come from the Babylonian period. So that's when they, they started interfacing with Aramaic. And they switched to Aramaic. So they call them square letters. That comes from this Babylonian period. So before that, they used a similar but different alphabet or abjad. And,
came from Phoenician, I believe.
Right. And the Phoenician comes from Proto-Sinaitic.
Proto-Sinaitic. Yeah.
Also called Proto-Canaanite.
Yeah.
It depends kind of on the scholar as to whether they're calling it Proto-Sinaitic or Proto-Canaanite. And I think the reason why they call it Proto-Sinaitic is because the first instance that they find of it is in the Sinai Peninsula. Right. And I think it's from some Canaanite workers who they're basically adapting some of these Egyptian hieroglyphs to kind of write their language.
Ah,
But they're not really trained to write.
Reformed Egyptian. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you mean
Eight-
Joseph was right?
Yeah. So this is like 1800-ish BC.
1800 BC.
Ish,
Okay.
ish for
Yeah,
the,
so this is way back.
for Proto-Sinaitic. And
So, see, if you're saying 1800 BC and the Hebrew starts to become a language at 1200, see, that's still 600 years of evolution, and it's first attested in 1000. So, that gives them enough time to develop it.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Very
And
good.
yeah, I always love, I should have included this, but I love looking at the development from Egyptian to modern English for the letters.
Yeah.
So for example, like the letter A,
Doc's head.
yeah, it comes from the Egyptian hieroglyph for
And then they
box.
flipped it over upside down.
Yeah. Well, okay,
Fascinating.
here's another really cool one. This, I'm just throwing out random stuff
Oh,
because
yeah.
it pops into my head. So a lot of these languages go right to left. Do you know why that is?
I don't. Why?
And did you know at some point a lot of them start to flip and go left to right?
Left to right.
Same letters. Do you know why that is?
No, I don't.
It's because when most people are right-handed, and when you're carving, it's easier to go right to left. But when you're writing, it's easier to go left to right. And so a lot of the earlier stuff was more like carved.
I'll be darned. The hieroglyphs in the
Yeah.
limestone and all that. Oh, how
Yeah.
fun.
And so, but then when people started writing, there were obviously not everybody, because Hebrew and Arabic and
Right.
stuff are still right to left. But
Right.
a lot of people took the exact same letters and flipped them left to right because they're right-handed and you're like
They're
smudging
right-handed.
stuff.
Yeah.
You ever heard left-handed people talk about like trying to do penmanship class?
It sucks. I'm left-handed.
Yeah.
I'm here to testify.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So is Paul. Paul's waving over there. Yeah. But Paul, the advantage is we are in our right minds. So I'm just saying we've got scientific evidence for that.
So yeah, we've thrown out a number of dates, but let's just go back to the slide and kind of hit some of these main dates. Hebrew starts to become a language around 1200 BC. And I mean, how languages develop is like people just start speaking a little different, and then that keeps rolling,
Yeah.
and that's just how it's always happened. And basically any language alive today, it would be very hard to understand any speaker of that language from 1,000 years ago.
It sure would. Yeah. I mean, just even Old English only 800 years ago, and we couldn't understand Chaucer to save our lives.
Well, that's Middle English. Chaucer's Middle English.
Who-
So Old
who's the
English,
That
Old
would be
English,
the Norman conquest time.
right? So
That's what I meant.
Old
Yeah,
English
yeah.
goes up to 1066 when you have the
1066,
Norman
right,
conquest.
right.
So it's from
I
about
remember.
400 to 1066. But yeah, if you try to talk to somebody who spoke Old English, like you literally couldn't understand them.
No.
Part of that is because English specifically went through a creolization with these Frankish languages.
Okay.
So we actually
Uh-huh.
like creolized and into Middle English, and we lost like a lot of our like how we like verbs, like strong verbs versus weak verbs.
Right.
So like run and ran, that's how you conjugate that. That's a strong verb. But you have like glide and glided, or like so slide and slid, strong verb, glide, glided, weak verb. And usually that's because it comes after the Norman conquest.
How interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But and so that's part of the creolization. Anyway, that's a sidetrack. But yeah, basically 1,000 years ago, you can't really understand any language from 1,000 years ago. Icelandic kind of, but like I was telling you the other day, they did a specific effort from like the 1700s to the present day to try to retrofit their language and make it sound more like from the 1200s.
Yeah.
And make it sound more like
That's
the sagas.
interesting.
So
Yeah, let's not go back to that. We don't want our language to sound old.
yeah, but
So
it's cool.
this first attested 1000 BC, that's not as significant as your next one.
Right. So biblical chronology. So this is right during the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel, if you go and look up these biblical chronology charts, it lands it in the 23rd century BC. You're going to obviously get some wiggle room on any Bible dating. So we could say 2400s to 2100-ish.
Okay. And so why is that significant with the Jaredites. What's the problem here,
Yeah,
Benny?
that's well.
This is what we want to look at.
Let's see what the next slide says.
Drum roll.
Hebrew didn't exist when the Jaredites left, and it would not start to exist for about 1,000 years, and it wouldn't be attested in writing for like 1,200 years. Yet over half of the names in the Book of Ether are Hebrew.
Wow.
So
this almost presents like a problem.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
So that's very interesting, but this is kind of like all drawing to a thesis. So let's just kind of go through the next few slides.
Okay, so Greek.
So let's look at Greek for a second. So Greek,
so it became a language earlier than Hebrew.
It did, yeah.
Okay.
And
just making sure I'm reading this right.
There are definitely there's stuff before that as well. So Greek is an Indo-European language.
Right.
It is go
through the Mycenae and all that.
Yeah. It is of the Hellenistic branch of the Indo-European languages, and it really starts to become its own thing around 1500 BC. And then you get like the classical Homeric Greeks around like 800-ish, and then you have Alexander, and he conquers.
Alexander changes everything, including the world.
And Greek kind of changes then again. And anyway, so we have a name that shows up in the Book of Ether, and it's Esrom. Now, what's interesting about this
wait
name,
a minute. Esrom, that top blue one, ESROM.
Yeah.
The Greek version.
The Greek version of the Hebrew name Hezron.
Hezron.
So,
ooh, and it appears only in the New Testament, you're saying?
It does. It is in the list of Jesus's ancestors in Matthew, and I think Luke too.
Luke, yeah. Luke would be the other genealogy.
I think it's in both, but I know it's in Matthew. Yeah. So Hezron is a name in Hebrew, and when they Hellenized it, they turned it into Esrom. And so part of the reason for that is because the ancient Greeks would pre-aspirate vowels. So that, like, you see that H there.
Yeah.
So when they read Esrom, they would have said an H sound. Hezrom.
Hezrom.
That's where you get like Eve, because Eve in Hebrew is Chava.
Chava, yeah, it is. Yes, it sure is.
And when it's written in Greek, they drop off the H
because
they pre-aspirate. Same with Anna and Hannah. Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that means princess or something in Hebrew. And so when they write it in Greek, they just write ANNA or Alpha Nu Alpha. Chana. And they would have just said Chana. So Esrom, they would have said Hezrom.
So what do you mean also have Jesus Christ in Egypt?
Yeah, so Jesus Christ,
the Greek has.
Well, yeah, Jesus Christ and Egypt are Greek versions of other words.
Okay.
So Jesus,
Jesus,
Christos is the
Christos.
This Greek version of Yehoshua Mashiach in Hebrew. And Egypt comes from Hat Kapta, which is Egyptian. So for Hat is like a temple.
Egypt comes from Egyptus. Haven't you read the papyri?
You got
the woman who discovered the land that was first underwater.
Let's back it up.
Get your linguistics right.
Hat means like temple. Ka is like a spirit. And Ptah is
and it looks like a referee doing the good for the kick for the goalposts. It's good. The extra point.
And Ptah is a creator god.
Yeah,
they have like 4 different creator gods in Egyptian mythology.
9.
9.
In some
okay.
versions.
Oh, that's true, because they have the.
And then they've got the Ennead. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
anyway, so Ptah is one of these creator gods, and he had a temple in the city of Memphis, and people called the temple Hatkaptah. And that went through, and the Greeks started to just refer to that as like, I'm going to Hatkaptah. But they started saying Hagupta, and
they dropped the H.
And they dropped the H, just like
Egypt.
Just like Hezron, Esrom.
Fun.
They dropped the H. Yeah, so Egypt used to have an H back in Old Egyptian. But then when it went to Greek, drop the H.
Well, okay, we might have another linguistic capability here with Ham. He's got the H.
He does.
The guy who carried the curse,
He
right?
does.
According to Joseph. I'm just tying in Joseph Smith here. This
Yeah.
is important. Okay. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
sorry, I'll get serious now.
but the reason why I'm not really like leaning too heavy on Jesus Christ in Egypt. Well, okay. Half in, half
You better
out.
not. One's Christian, the other one's pagan.
Well,
Wasn't Jesus a Christian?
That depends on who you ask.
Well, yeah, there's a book on that. I'm telling you. I got it right back here. How Jesus became Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously you have all the Copts in Egypt, which is
There
very
you go.
Christian. So
Yes,
depends
yes,
on who
yes.
you ask. As
It
to,
does, actually. You're entirely correct. I concede that point. Yep.
But yeah, Jesus Christ is revealed to the brother of Jared, this name Jesus Christ. I'm not a huge.
I see where you're going.
I'm not a huge fan of that. So you would have this theory that Joseph Smith just rendered that in our modern English,
right?
And the brother of Jared just got some who knows what language of Jesus Christ,
right,
revealed to him. So. I don't
So
know.
Joseph Smith, you would say Joseph Smith is probably the one who rendered the translation into the concept as he would have understood it.
The Hellenized version.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I'm kind of like, eh. And then Egypt is
right.
another one. Mesopotamia had contact with Egypt since the 4th millennium BC. So like they knew that it existed, and
so that goes way back.
Yeah. So this is at least 1,000 years before the Jaredites. So
there's the Greek.
That's so having Egypt in there is another one that I'm like, well, okay, whatever.
Yeah. All right.
So Greek didn't exist when the Jaredites left, yet they use the Greek form of a Hebrew name.
Okay, so wait a minute. You told us that the Hebrew didn't exist either, and yet there's Hebrew names, right?
I did, yeah.
I didn't misunderstand you. Now you're saying the Greek did. Well, just what the hell did exist then?
That's a very good question, and that's
hey, look at that.
That's exactly where we're going to.
Okay,
so we're talking about the Tower of Babel. We're talking about Mesopotamia,
we're talking way back then.
The Middle River, Mesopotamia, right?
Mesopotamia, yes, it was.
And so what did language actually look like in Mesopotamia? Like if there actually was a Tower of Babel, if it actually landed chronologically where the Bible wants us to interpret it as, what would the linguistic landscape have been? So there's 2 languages, and the first one is Akkadian.
Okay.
Akkadian is a Semitic language. Like
pretty old language, 2,500.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest attested languages in the world. Obviously, Egyptian and Sumerian, we have older attestations of those. But yeah, Akkadian, very, very old as far as like written records go. About 2,500 BCE, that's the first time that we're getting like Akkadian, which is kind of crazy. That's 4,500 years ago. And it is a Semitic language, and it lasts until about 500 BCE for like actual usage. You get, religious texts and stuff that'll go for like another 500 years. But that's just how it goes. But like for actual like people speaking, it has about to our knowledge, about a 2,000-year lifespan. Pretty good for a language.
Pretty good for a language. Yeah. Longer than ours so far.
Yeah.
So far.
And so other Semitic languages that you'll have heard of: Hebrew, Ugaritic, Phoenician, Aramaic, Eblaite. That's probably another one.
Could be, yeah.
Edomite, Ammonite. Those are, like just a lot of these Canaanite land peoples will speak Semitic languages. And the Akkadian Empire, this is what many historians consider to be the first empire. So like there were kingdoms before, but Sargon of Akkad.
It was the Sumerians.
You're
talking the Akkadian Empire.
I'm talking about
okay.
Yeah, like as far as different historians will be like, no, this was an empire. Oh, this was an empire.
Right.
But like a decent amount of historians consider the Akkadian Empire of Sargon to be the first empire.
David Bokovoy would be pleased with you.
Yeah. And so that lasts for about 200 years, the Akkadian Empire. And lo and behold, it is right during the time that we're interested in. This Mesopotamian
time of the Jaredites.
time and place.
Look at this.
Time and place.
I see why you're bringing this up now.
The Akkadian Empire. And what's...
Yeah, because Ether says they separated at the tower, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why you're doing this.
Exactly. So they're leaving like from the tower, basically.
I'm with you.
You know, they're like...
Yeah, they even prayed, don't spare us our language.
Yes, they're feeling like
the
little
Lord did.
bits of masonry like dribble on their heads, you know?
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
now this comes up. Oh, and now I see the relevance. And you're saying 500,000 documents?
Yeah, so that's one of the crazy things about Akkadian is we have
They were
so
writers.
many documents, and a lot of them are from the 3rd millennium BC.
Any gold plates? Any metal plates yet?
We're looking at a lot of clay plates,
Clay plates.
clay
Okay.
tablets.
All
Yeah.
right. See, the Jaredites were probably on the rich end of the Akkadians.
Yeah, so the Akkadian is beautiful because it is the exact time and place that the Jaredites would be leaving from. The Empire of Sargon the Great. That's not his actual name. We don't know what his name was, but that's what they
He's
call
not
him.
in the Book of Ether, is he?
He didn't make
Darn,
it.
That'd have been cool.
Wouldn't that have been something?
That would have been something. Boy, you'd have had to revise your thesis here.
I know
Ether,
it.
having been friends with Sargon, skipping stones at the lake, did receive a revelation. Sargon, you stick here and take care of the place. I'm splitting and going over to the other country.
Yeah, well, that would have been Jared, not Ether, but
Oh, it
yeah.
would have. Yeah, Ether's at the end. Duh.
yeah,
That would have been Mahanrai Morian.
exactly. And
Is that an Akkadian name?
Mahanrai
you think?
Moriankamer?
Mahanrai Morian? Or is that a Joseph
I
Smithian
didn't try
name?
to match that one.
We'll have to do some
Yeah,
study.
we'll
together.
we'll have to update the list.
Break up the Mahanrai.
So yeah, there are a lot of documents
documents.
from the 3rd millennium. Most of them are from later, because that's just
Sure.
how like time and entropy works.
Sure.
But
yeah, that makes sense.
Sumerian, I did not do a comparison because I could not personally find a large enough list on the internet. I'm sure if I were to go to some university library, could
Yeah,
probably dig something up there.
There's got to be something somewhere. Okay, yeah, but for your purposes, the Akkadian works really well as a control.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
So Sumerian differs from Akkadian in that there are no known linguistic relatives. It is what's known as a linguistic isolate, like the Basque language or
Okay.
Korean. Those are like, as far as we know, they don't have any relatives.
Huh. Okay.
Papua New Guinea has a lot of linguistic isolates as well. It's wild.
One of the islands.
Papua
How
New Guinea has like the highest density of languages of any country in the world.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it's freaking nuts.
Really.
Yeah. But
Wow.
anyway, that's a sidetrack.
Population of 90, and none of them can talk to each other because there's 90 different languages.
So Sumerian and Akkadian formed a Sprachbund. It's a German word.
Yeah.
In the Akkadian Empire. So a lot of people were bilingual. And actually throughout human history, recorded human history, more than half of all people have been like bilingual.
Yeah.
So having this, like in the US where we just have such a monolithic culture is kind of like, is almost like a modern convenience that a lot of ancient people just didn't have because,
I'll be done.
it's
Well,
it just wasn't available to them.
I'm bilingual with one language.
Are you going to say body language?
No, I know Ing and Lish. And then just barely. Okay, that's enough. Just stop it.
But when they do look at these old Akkadian tablets, they do find something like 10% of the names are Sumerian.
Sumerian. How interesting.
So
Okay.
you get some like cross pollination and
Okay.
stuff just because like they're so close together.
So
like given the time and place, the Jaredites should have spoken Akkadian or Sumerian. And Joseph Smith just unfortunately picked a time and place that we happen to have a ton of records from. He could have picked like so many other places that we don't have. Like
he did the same thing with the papyri, didn't he?
that we don't have data for, and then it would just be up in the air. Like, well, I don't know. But the problem is we do have a lot of data for this exact time and place. So when I went through and I tried to do a very extensive analysis, but I am not an Assyriologist. So obviously it would just be incredible if an actual Assyriologist could come through with
I wonder if Paul Hoskisson, he's the BYU Assyriologist. I don't know if he's still working or not, though. He might be retired right now, but I may have to ask around. I'll check for you. That might be interesting.
A favor.
Yeah.
Because I'm
so
sure
you're saying you only find 2 or 3% really close.
I found 2 names that I could declare as this is really close to so this is like my analogy to a direct hit from the KJV.
Right.
So
right.
like two out of these 69, I was like,
okay,
this is good. And these are the 2.
Oh, and you put them good.
I did because I want people to see.
Kurum.
So you have Koram and Kurum is the Akkadian name.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was actually like a Sumerian king as well. So
Kish
and Kish is like a famous Akkadian city. But
so just those 2 though, huh?
Those were the ones that I found that I considered like this is as close to a direct hit as I could find.
Right.
So that's what I mean by really close is like this is the direct hits, so to say. And then I tried to like scrape the bottom of the barrel and find anything that I could consider somewhat close.
Okay.
And I found 28 or 41%. 28 out of 69 or 41% were somewhat close to Akkadian names. And I have included, these are like the best ones from my list of 28. So Ablom, that's in the Book of Ether. And I found Abulum and Ablu. Now those are pretty close. Like
those
that,
are pretty
like,
good.
I'll give it
linguistically. Looks like
okay.
It looks like
okay.
it.
So what I'm saying is
yeah.
those are pretty close superficially.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying. Like
because we're non-linguists
with linguistics.
Yeah.
Well, let me get into that in a second. Let's just go through this list.
All right.
Akish, once again, Kish. Amnigada, and I found Gagada. So this is showing you that I was trying to dig deep, like Gagada, Amnigada. I'm not just like matching first letters, and like if I don't find it,
right.
I'm like trying to dig deep on this.
Sure.
Ezram, Isharum. Now, a funny one with that is Isharum is a name, but it means penis. So,
no kidding.
But that, if you remember, that's our.
I think Ezram got mad at his parents later on. I hope they didn't call him dickhead.
If you remember Ezram, that's our Greek.
It is the Greek
of Hezron.
Oh my gosh.
So this is your alternative to having a Greek version of the Hebrew name.
All right.
Nimrah, Namraza, Shalem, Shim, Shimti, Shiz.
Hey, the headless Shiz.
The headless Shiz.
He's made history in modern anti-Mormonism. Yeah. I'm just saying.
Shisi'u.
Zerin and Ziri.
Yeah, Zerin and Ziri.
So that little caret above the S in that second to the last one is a sh, not a s. Yeah, so Shisi'u.
Shisi'u.
Shisi'u. Okay.
Yeah.
Zerin and Ziri. Okay.
Yeah. So those
I can see what you're trying. I can see what you're saying. Somewhat close. All right.
Yeah.
That's fair so far.
Yeah. But what about like more common Akkadian names?
I don't know any.
Right. So this is what I did. This is my methodology, just so everybody listening knows like what I did and they can decide if they like that or not. I went through, I found a study that tabulated a list of all the names that they found from old Akkadian sites. And so it did repeats.
Okay.
So it didn't just say like this name. If it had the name 20 times, it listed the name 20 times.
Right.
In the study.
Okay. Cool.
So I looked at this list of Akkadian names and I just picked out ones that had a lot of repeats on them. So is that actually representative of the more common Akkadian names? I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is that's sort of like what we know.
You pick the more used ones.
Once again,
of what was available.
Getting an actual Assyriologist to like come and look at this, it'd probably be just way more useful than my cursory.
Well, that's all right. This gives others a target to tilt at.
Right. Right.
is how the apologists are going to say, because they're going to come after you tooth or claw. You are refuting the Book of Ether, you schmuck nose.
So here are just some of the more common names that I found. And I'll just read some of them for anybody who's just listening. Alili, Arkuku, Beli, Bibi, Dababa, Dada, Enbuilo.
Dada, hey, Dada.
That might be a god. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, Dada, Heavenly Father. I mean, come on. What more do you want?
This Ilum does mean...
There's Mama.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have Heavenly Mother.
Yeah, there is Puzur Mama and Sumama. I know that Mamu is a god.
It is, yeah. Mama.
But I can't remember if Mama is a god too. Yeah.
Interesting.
Pupu, Isharum, Kuku, Ireum, Zawizuzu, Watarum. So these are Samash Bitum. Samash is the sun god.
Cuckoo, that was their prophet, right? Kind of like ours. Ouch.
Ilum means God. I don't know if it means God in these names.
Oh, it would, yeah. Ilum, yeah.
Just because words can mean different things. So and I don't know enough to.
Well, Shamash.
Yeah.
Shamash Bitum, Shamash.
Yeah,
isn't that like sun god? Yeah.
I did look that one up, and Samash or Shamash is the sun god. It's like Samson in the Bible. His name comes from sun.
Right. Yeah, very good.
And like that's the whole part of the whole thing with Samson is he has this long golden hair.
And then
like the sun is always depicted as having these rays coming off, and then he gets his glory cut off.
I've heard somewhere
he no longer shines.
It's basically a codified sun myth. The whole story.
I've heard that too. Don't know if it's true.
I haven't looked into that a whole lot. So maybe someday we'll do that.
But so these are
the more popular ones, more common ones, I should say.
Yeah, and so
those look kind of etherish.
Well, the problem is that none of them,
none
of the names in Ether are more common Akkadian names, as far as
as you can tell.
Yeah, as my investigation.
So you're saying you went through several different digs or excavation places where they were listing these.
So I didn't. There was one study that collated all of these from different digs together, and then just had a giant list of the names. It's like thousands of names. So I just went through that list.
Okay, I'm with you. Interesting. None of them are there. Okay.
Yeah, and so you would kind of expect that if they were a breakoff from the empire of Akkad, that they would be using at least some of the more common Akkadian names. It'd be like if...
Okay, now that's a fair supposition. If I would think so.
If somebody broke off from England in like the 1600s, you would expect some people to be named John or Daniel or Peter or, you like, even if not everybody has that name, you would expect at least like one or two to slip in, of the more common names.
That would seem reasonable to me. Yeah.
So, that's not like a smoking gun, but it's kind of like, well,
it gives us an indication.
It ain't helping your case.
It's not helping. Yeah, that's fair. That seems fair to me.
Yeah. Right. And there was something I was gonna say about this, and I was like, no, let's wait till later. But I can't remember now. Well, if it comes to me, then I will bless you all with the deep wisdom. Let's move on. So we've talked a lot about linguistics specifically, and just like, I remember. Yeah. So with linguistics, so like these names, something that's important is with my hypothesis with Joseph Smith doing a comparison to the KJV, is there doesn't have to be any stronger linguistic connection other than you look at the word and you try to make something that sounds similar to the names in the KJV.
Okay, because that's what he would have probably done.
Right, but with a hypothesis like this, like saying, okay, well, they were speaking Akkadian. Now, all of these connections, so these somewhat close ones, you now have to establish a linguistic lineage between these words. So, for example, you have words like butter and butthole, and you can be like, wow, the first four letters of these words are the same, so like maybe they're like, but
they're nowhere near
right, but etymologically they come from completely different words,
right.
So if we're actually trying to say that there is a genuine linguistic connection here, like in ancient connection, then you have to now provide us with that connection. You can't just be like, this word looks close.
Right. I'm with you.
So I think that is a very important point.
Okay.
So like we have Shem and Shimti, and like it could be that
are they going to see that mouse cursor?
I don't know.
I don't even know if anyone's seeing anything yet. We haven't checked.
Well, when I presented it earlier and then we
They
flipped
said
back,
they
then
saw.
they were like, yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good.
So I'm just
if
like,
they can't, we'll hear about it.
I'm just going on that trust.
We'll do a second version. We'll have a chalkboard behind us next time.
Yeah, it'll be like DNC 27. Like this is the Book of Commandments version, and then we'll have to do the DNC version.
We'll have to add a whole bunch of stupid shit,
Yeah.
just like Joseph Smith did. All right, we can do that.
Okay,
So Jerusalem. Why the question mark? What's going on here?
Yeah, so this is another thing that I think is very pertinent to consider. So we've talked a lot about linguistics,
Right.
and I think that linguistics can tell you a whole lot, but it can't tell you everything. And so when you're reading the Book of Ether, you start to get some not just language but concepts that emerge.
Okay. I'm with you.
And so we have like the word Jerusalem is not just a Hebrew word. So Jerusalem shows up in the Book of Ether, and if it just showed up, that would be one thing. But it is attached to a concept of this being like a very important city for God's chosen people.
In Ether, you're saying.
In Ether.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's in Ether 13.
That is a problem. Why?
Well, like I said, they're breaking. They have not been in Eurasia for 2,000 years by the time that Ether is preaching.
Now that's big.
They
Interesting, huh?
left before Abraham would have existed. They left before Isaac and Israel and Joseph. And
okay, the Akkadian. Hold on. The Akkadian. I'll repeat this so that in case my audience is wondering also. So correct me if I'm wrong on this. The Akkadian language we said was about 2500 BC to 500 BC, right?
Yeah.
So the Akkadians 2500 BC, the Tower of Babel 2300 BC. Okay, so the Jaredites left then, and Ether is 200, so 2,000 years away.
And so the reason why we know,
there's no way they would have known. Abraham, roughly, if I remember from even Nibley's stuff, and his is extremely dated, 1800 at deepest, I suspect, if I remember right, 1800.
The very
earliest is going to be 2000.
Yeah, the very wide is 2000 to 1600.
2000 to 1600.
That's for Abraham.
That's what
like
I was driving. So for 2,000 years, and these guys left before 2000.
Yes.
We can establish that chronologically.
Yeah.
So what is Ether prophesying about Jerusalem and Abraham and Israel?
Right. So
and Joseph from Lehi and the lost tribes and the new. I see. So this shift of concept here, this starts making it sticky. This is kind of like Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somewhat. That Tar Baby is sticky. Hold it.
Yeah. So in chapter 13, so the reason why we know Ether is preaching maybe around 200 BC is because in the book of, is it Omni? Limhi. King Limhi sends out from the land of Nephi. He's like, we need to find
expedition.
Yeah, we need to find we need to find Zarahemla. Like we've been
That's
here.
Right. They were looking at Zarahemla
for 3 generations. We're just wasting our time under the thumb of the Lamanites. So they send out an expedition. It's right around 130 BC, and they end up finding the remnants.
The remnant. That's right.
Of the Jaredites.
Yeah.
And they find bones. And they find swords
and plates.
I
told you it wasn't clay tablets. See,
yeah,
history will vindicate Joseph Smith just yet.
But on the swords, it's like, well, okay, the wooden handles were rotted away, but the blades hadn't fully like cankered away with rust. So the blades were still.
So there's some age to it, but not real ancient age. So they were destroyed fairly recently.
Exactly.
Right.
So
I'm with you.
130 BC. The Jaredites had been destroyed not like crazy long before that.
Okay.
So that's why I put like very approximately ether is in
Sure.
200,
200 BC. That perfectly reasonable.
which is almost exactly 2,000 years.
2,000 years later. Yeah, I can remember stuff from 2,000 years ago, even though we Americans only broke off 400 years ago. So this makes perfect sense that Joseph Smith would have had ether properly prophesying about Jerusalem, Abraham, Joseph, Lehi. That is astonishing when you think about it.
Yeah.
So would I be far off in saying it appears just superficially at this point? And I know we're just shifting to the concept of concepts here, from names to concepts, but this in ether to have these concepts just can't work.
No.
Can it?
For example, like even if we're going to say, well, maybe the city of Jerusalem existed, you know, at that point when they left, and like it could have meant something to them. You have this idea of the New Jerusalem, which comes from, I think, Ezekiel, which is like 600-ish BC.
About that, yeah.
And
580, something
yeah,
like that,
yeah. And so like the concept of a new Jerusalem, the concept of like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't exist. You didn't have tribes of Israel. You didn't have lost tribes.
You know, agreed. And that is as egregious. That's true. But on your New Jerusalem idea with Ezekiel, 580 to 600 BC, even the Old Jerusalem, dude, if it went back to 1500 BC, that's before David was king.
Well, that's before
right?
That's before
But
Moses.
That's before, but it's still not early enough.
Yeah.
We're talking 2300 BC when the Jaredites left.
Yeah. Although
So this whole thing is problematic as far as concepts.
I think if you're going pure Bible, that
seems like it, doesn't
Melchizedek was the king of Salem. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's, you know, that's like contemporary with Abraham, so 1800-ish. And so if you're going pure Bible and you don't look at any archaeology, then you could say that Salem is Jerusalem, right? It's an earlier version. Sure. And so, you know, you could say that.
Still not far enough back, are you?
Yeah, you're still like 400 years off.
400, yeah.
But
as far in time, just to give the audience context, this is, you know, you say, well, 400 ain't that much. Hold on now. We're talking from the time...
Plymouth Rock.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. We're talking the time of the pilgrims of Plymouth Rock, you guys. Just barely getting here to our day.
They're holding hands.
That's how big a time gap 400 years is.
Passing around maize, having the first Thanksgiving.
They're just starting to learn to put those little fish in the holes with their seeds for fertilizer that we learned in grade school. That's a while ago.
Yeah.
Cornucopias. That's back in Standish's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is before Richard Nixon, for those of you who are really wondering. Am I right, Paul? Yeah, Paul is nodding in agreement.
So who...
what a great question.
Ether is giving this whole speech. Who is he preaching to? Like what? And if God is revealing all of these things to him about the old world that nobody has any connection to, what is God's goal here?
Yeah, because nobody in his day would have known about Abraham.
No.
Or Jerusalem.
Or any of those things on the list.
Now, there's your point. The lost tribes. Yeah, none of that. New Jerusalem. The seed of Joseph. The house. Oh, wow. Okay, go back. Yeah. Who is he preaching for? What is God's goal here? What is God's goal here?
Yeah. And so this is the analogy that I came up with. So imagine that right now you head to Mars and you start a colony and they live there for 2,000 years with no Earth contact. Okay. And then one of your descendants is there and someone is trying to convert them to their religion by telling stories about people and places on Earth that came into existence 1,000 years after you left. So you've been gone for 2,000 years, and this person comes up and he's like,
I wouldn't know him at all.
And he's like, hey, you know, 1,000 years ago back on Earth, all this stuff happened, and you should convert to my religion.
Okay, show me the baptismal font.
That is
What an
the
analogy.
equivalent.
That's interesting. Yeah.
They have had no contact for 2,000 years. These concepts,
They wouldn't even have a context for the concepts, would
no,
they?
they did not exist when they left. They've been split off for 2,000 years. And this dude just stands up and he's preaching, and he's just like, and it literally, the preachings of Ether are indistinguishable from fantasy and would convince nobody. So, you know, and it's trying to be all sympathetic in Ether 13, and it's like, and nobody believed him, and he had to go and live in a rock. It's like, well, why did nobody believe him? Let's take one, like, half a step back and look at it for a second. Like, you would have to be insane to believe him at all.
At all. Yeah.
Like,
how interesting. Okay.
so that's and this is in the middle of all of Ether's preachings in Ether 13.
Okay.
We hit verse 8, and I maybe could have included a couple other verses around this, but he says, "Wherefore the remnant of the house of Joseph shall be built upon this land, and it shall be a land of their inheritance, and they shall build up a holy city unto the Lord, like unto the Jerusalem of old, and they shall no more be confounded until the end come, when the earth shall pass away."
Now I can't get that Mars thing out of my head. I get it. So what? That would be my response. So, yeah. I mean, who are these people? Why do
Right. So
why do I care? What's the point of Jerusalem? But that doesn't mean a thing to me. That's interesting.
But let's dig into this from our modern perspective.
Okay.
The house of Joseph shall be built on this. The remnant of the house of Joseph shall be built upon this land. In other places in the Book of Mormon, you know, it's all talking about the Lamanites being the remnant of the house of Joseph. And you know, it's like this book is for the Lamanites, and it's to convert them, etc., etc. And it just didn't. It never did. Like, the Book of Mormon has never been a major factor for Native Americans.
Oh my gosh, that's a good point.
And
I've been talking to Jonathan Neville with the Heartland theory, and he's saying, yeah, that whole charade down there in Mesoamerica. I mean, the church, I mean, when that comes back to bite these guys, that's going to massacre them, because they're in the wrong continent.
we're gonna need a third Cumorah.
We're going to need a third Cumorah, yeah. We're going to have to hope the cave there is big enough that all the brethren can run into it and hide. Huh.
They got a big one in Salt Lake.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true. Granite Mountain.
Got some records in there.
There.
That is the third Cumorah.
Dude.
I'll
bet some parents are naming their kids Joseph right now.
Other Cumorahs I have, which
what's your last name? Fritzenheim. Well, Joseph Fritzenheim, that'll work.
Other Cumorahs I have, which are not of this fold. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, there you go. Well, this is kind of shocking.
Yeah, and so
none of this,
like,
none of this jives.
Looking at this prophecy, it shall be a land of their inheritance, and they shall build up a holy city unto the Lord, like unto the Jerusalem of old. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I think you can just interpret it however you want.
I don't know who the house of Joseph would be. So who cares about a remnant?
Yeah, the remnant of the house of Joseph. I think in the context of the Book of Mormon, that is supposed to be the Lamanites.
The Lamanites. Okay.
I think if you read the rest of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, because they have to become a white and delight some people.
Right.
They have to curse.
Right.
Just saying. Pretty silly,
and
but
they
I didn't
shall,
like the book.
And they shall no more be confounded until the end come, when the earth shall pass away. I don't know what that
no
means.
No more be
either.
Confounded. Yeah. Who was and why and how and where and when.
Right. So if you say, okay, remnant of the house of Joseph, let's not care about Manasseh at all. That's just Ephraim. And we're just going to do a bunch of patriarchal blessings and say that everybody in Utah is Ephraim. Yeah. You know, and
that's
then
pretty much what they do, isn't it?
And then we
haven't heard anybody from Cain yet, even though they gave him the priesthood lately, right? Since 1978. The patriarchs are terrified to give black people the lineage of Cain.
Oh, that's right. They did that a couple of times. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a political hot potato.
The lineage of Cain and the patriarchal
blessings. What are you going to do? Tell them they're from Ephraim? Come on, get real. They never thought that one through, did they?
So, you know, I think an apologetic interpretation of this would be like, okay, well, Ephraim. That's who it's talking about. Who cares about Manasseh? And we are Ephraim, and we established Salt Lake City. But I think even with that, you start to get to this problem where you're like, well, now less than half of the population of Salt Lake City is LDS.
Okay.
And like what? And so you
your
start
point
to
is?
you start to ask, like, they shall no more be confounded until the earth shall pass away. Like, and I think you start to have to interpret this in such a way that it becomes essentially meaningless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you currently are seeing an exodus of people from the church. Does that count as confounding? Like, does the SEC finding the church $5 million count as confounding? Like, at what point?
It does certain of them. That's for sure.
At what point do you
And it's
do you
not
just
because of the small size of the fine either.
at what point do you say yes?
It's confounding.
This is confounding.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
So I think that either this is a failed prophecy, or
what confounds us is the idiot lunatic apologetics that's coming out of the church leadership. And what confounds the church leadership is that nobody's believing them much anymore.
Well, I think from the church leadership, there are almost no apologetics, and it is very much just thought-stopping cliches, like doubt your doubts.
Oh, what a way to put it.
That's not enough
cliches. I'm going to steal that from you. I'm going to put that on one of my podcasts.
It's not mine, so feel free.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's it. You plagiarized it. So you Joseph Smith.
You invited a plagiarist under your roof.
Here we go. Yeah, this is very interesting how you present this. Yeah.
So
okay,
either like it's a failed prophecy, or it's a meaningless prophecy because you have to reinterpret it so that it doesn't mean anything, basically.
And technically those are equivalent because failed prophecies are meaningless. So.
Yeah. So okay,
let's get the $1 million question.
Let's get to like the thesis of all of this. What was our boy old Joe doing?
No, he was young.
Oh, that's right.
I'm just saying.
That's right.
A young guy could not have written that book, being uneducated like he was.
No,
according to the current false narrative, according to Richard Bushman.
Yeah, only an old guy, but you can't do that.
Adam Clark, why do I care about him?
Adam Clark.
Who is he? Who is this?
I imagine that probably a lot of the listeners.
It sounds like a first man type of name.
It does.
Clark could be Clark Kent. Is he the first Superman or something? Who's he? Why do I care about him?
Actually, this is kind of funny. Adam means man in Hebrew, and Clark is a clerk.
It does.
So
there you go.
So if you just like man clerk, that's what his name means. That's funny.
There you go.
Man clerk.
So
what does
Genesis
man clerk
11,
have to say?
What's this man clerk? Genesis 11. Okay.
Yeah. So Adam Clark he was a Methodist preacher, and he spent 40 years on a Bible commentary. It's like 7 volumes or something. I think
that's far more impressive than most of our church leaders do, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the
40 years. So.
The first, I can't remember. I think he published New Testament first, and I think he put that out in 1811. And then I think the second set was the Old Testament, and that came out in 1825.
Okay, so Joseph Smith saved. He didn't have access to this.
Well, he wrote in 1829, so.
Yeah, but I promise there's somebody out there who will say that he didn't have access to that.
So we know that in 1831, and this comes out from BYU, which I'm sure a lot of people listening are familiar with this by now. What is his name? Waymond? Is that the
Wayman? Yeah.
Yep.
And he just recently wrote a New Testament retranslation from the Greek too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Thomas Wayman.
Thomas Wayman and Haley Lamont. I think they did a study where they were like, hey, something like 40% of all of the changes in the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, 1831, are directly from Adam Clark's commentary on the Bible.
They said it was that high.
I believe so.
I haven't read his study yet.
I haven't looked at it for a bit. So,
so that's pretty significant, 40%. That's really huge.
Right. So by 1831, we know that Joseph had full access to Adam Clark's Bible commentary.
Yeah.
And so it is not a crazy stretch of the imagination to picture him 2 years earlier also, if not having direct access, then having at least exposure from preachers. Yeah.
Now, the reason why we can verify that, I would say, and it might be indirect, but my good friend Doug Vincent and I, it's been a couple months now, we did that Erie Canal podcast and showing the serious change. And it was by 1825, when it was completely finished, the availability of information overnight completely exploded. It was available, and it was available almost instantly. We're talking just 3 days, and from one end of the county to the other, you could have a book. That's faster than we get today in some respects. So that's true. He would have been well known. I mean, if he was that popular for 40 years and wrote that much.
Yeah.
So that's it.
You know, Amazon is one river. So we have Amazon Prime. They had like Erie Prime back then, right?
Yes. Yeah. Erie Prime. Yeah.
There we go.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. Dude, you're creative.
Okay. So let's take, so on the Tower of Babel episode in Adam Clark's commentary, this is the first like 10, 11 verses of Genesis 11. And he says the proper names and their significations given in the scripture seem incontestable evidences that the Hebrew language was the original language of the earth, the language in which God spake to man and in which he gave the revelation of his will to Moses and the prophets. And then he quotes some man named Ainsworth. Sorry, I don't know who that is. Another scholar. It was used.
That's Mr. and Mrs. Ainsworth's son.
Well, now we know. Now we know. It was used in all the world for 1,757 years till Peleg, the son of Heber, was born. And the Tower of Babel was in building 100 years after the flood. After this, it was used among the Hebrews or Jews, called therefore the Jews' language, until they were carried captive into Babylon, where the holy tongue ceased from being commonly used, and the mixed Hebrew or Chaldee came into it. Aramaic. That's what we would call it today.
So he is stating something very interesting theologically here, isn't it?
Yeah. So he's saying basically that Hebrew is the pure tongue, what we might call Adamic.
And the very first one.
Right. And it's what God used to speak to man. And
back in the Tower of Babel.
Yes. And then
am I reading that right? Hold on. 750 years later, till Peleg, son of Heber.
Right.
And the Tower of Babel was in building 100 years after the flood. And he's saying the Hebrew language was there. Right?
Yes.
Am I reading that right?
So Peleg in, I think it's also in Genesis.
That was
11.
when all the continents were all one.
Well, it says that in the days of Peleg, the land was divided, and you get like Joseph F. Smith, who has a whole interpretation on it that says everything was Pangea until Peleg.
Until Peleg, yeah. Joseph Fielding Smith also said we'd never be going to the moon. Yes. Those Quakers have to be in isolation.
Yeah, and then you have Heber, and that is where at least in the Bible, the etymology of Hebrew comes from.
Yeah. Interesting.
Not that that's necessarily
no, of course
true,
not.
but
not anywhere close. However, hey, it sounds good in Joseph Smith's day.
Yeah. So the point of all of this is basically this is two different scholars of the time in a popular Bible commentary that was available to Joseph Smith saying, hey, Hebrew was the original language, and it was spoken all the way up until the Tower of Babel, and then only the branch through Heber remained speaking Hebrew until the exile.
Now, lest some in my audience, and you too, sincerely, I'm going to tell you a true story. When I was at Rick's College, granted, it was ancient history now, back in the 1980s, but my religion teacher completely had a testimony that Hebrew was the Adamic tongue. And he said, oh, it's the original. There's no question. He said, when you kids grow up and mature and you're able to study a little further into the theology of the church, and when you really do get a full depth of study in Joseph Smith and all, you will see why he studied the Hebrew in the school of the prophets, and you will see how it helped him translate the papyri, because this was the very first language, and it's the language Adam spoke. And I was 23 or 24 at the time when he told me that. No joke, right there at Rick's College. So this is not just a concept in Joseph Smith's day. It is still believed right now in the church, just so you know, at the college level, and they're teaching the youth this.
Yeah, absolutely. And So if we remember back to my Hebrew slide, Hebrew doesn't start to become a language until 1200 BCE.
1200.
And the first actual inscription we have of Hebrew is 1000.
1000. Yeah.
And that
BCE.
that is in sort of this like Proto-Hebraic script that
Geezer calendar or something like that.
Yeah,
it was one of the old ones
can't-
way back when.
Yeah, I can't exactly remember the specific artifact, but yeah, it's something like that. And then but the thing is, we have many other languages that are attested before that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
without, like you said, with thousands of clay tablets too.
And we
or
also
documents.
have to be cognizant of the evolution of
Cognizant. Is that Hebrew? Sorry. Sound
French.
French. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. We have to be cognizant of what?
Of the evolution of language.
Exactly. And that's something, no joke, I'm not making this up. That's something that the prophets and the apostles and the college professors don't accept.
Yeah.
Is that nuts?
Well, it's
I
crazy.
mean, when you study the history of languages, you can definitely see where they're tracing it from. But
yes.
this
So
church doesn't believe that.
one of the purest examples is Latin.
Oh, isn't it though?
We have
no kidding.
so many writings of classical Latin. And
Yeah.
from the classical period, we have writings all the way up to the present day, like without gaps. Like you can go and see how did Italian develop? How did Spanish develop? French, Portuguese, Romanian,
all the Romance
Dalmatian,
language. Absolutely.
Tosharian,
Fundamentally.
like all of these Romance
we
languages.
can trace it almost year by year.
Yeah.
There's no break. And we're talking, well, at least what's
2,000 years.
2,000 years. Yeah, it'd be 2,000 years.
Yeah.
We're at 2023, right?
Yeah, classical Latin is
2023.
from like, what is it? It's like 100 BC to 200
Well,
AD or something like
when
that.
did Caesar say, I came, I saw, I kicked their ass? Oh, that wasn't quite how he said it, but still, it's what he did.
Was that Caesar?
Weenie, weenie, weechie.
Yeah, Winnie Weedy Wiki.
I'm just saying.
Sounds like you're talking about a Ouija board. Dude.
Hey, maybe that's where it came from the Hebrew. From
Okay,
the Latin
check
Hebrew.
this out.
The Reformed Hebrew to the Latin.
You go to Wendy's and you buy weed and a Ouija board. Wendy's weed and Ouija.
We're getting now we're studying the mysteries.
Wendy's weed and Ouija. I just made that up. You heard it here.
Okay. I wish we could see the comments. I'd love to see what they're saying about that. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yeah,
That's very important.
Yeah, so the evolution of language, like it is a process that we know that it happens, and this is a thing that I always come back to: is in order to accept one proposal, what other things do you have to deny? Because it's never like it's never a positive sum game. It's always a zero sum game. Meaning that if we're going to accept this, we have to deny this. We can't just say I accept and this remains neutral. You have to say I accept this,
and you have
this. Therefore,
of
this is not true. Like language. Like to say Hebrew is the original language, you have to say I deny how just linguistics and how languages change over time.
All right.
Or like the dating of the earth. That's another one. To say the earth is 6,000 years old, you have to deny geology and just so many other branches of science,
and all that.
Yeah, weird stuff.
Rod Meldrum to the contrary.
Yeah. So Joseph basically thought,
oh, here we are.
That that Hebrew was Adamic, the pure tongue. And so in these luminaries' minds, Adam Clarke and Ainsworth. Apparently that's
and now Smith.
And now Joseph Smith. This was the state of affairs at the time. And so like I said at the start, my hypothesis is that Joseph decided I am going to come up with names and sprinkle them throughout the book of Ether to provide a verisimilitude of authenticity according to my 19th century understanding of 3rd millennium BC linguistics.
Which scholars will back me up because he had Adam Clarke.
Yes.
So actually, That's what, wouldn't you suppose that that is kind of what helped make the Book of Mormon more acceptable
Absolutely.
to his contemporaries? Because everybody would have been familiar with Adam Clark, right? I mean, he did 40 years on that, and he was the one to go to, kind of like Russell M. Nelson is the one to go to today for believing Mormons.
Yeah, I read that his commentary was one of, if not the most popular for at least a couple decades.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's enough to, and that means it definitely would have been spread around because of that Erie Canal.
yeah. So, I mean, I haven't I don't know actual studies on that, looking for quotes, specifically,
Right, but
looking
still,
for. So
we'll assume it for now until we're proven wrong.
Yeah,
we're right. Just believe us.
So let's go back to linguistics.
Okay.
This is what we were talking about earlier. These are the names of ether. So we have 69 names.
Okay.
And so of those, 26 are exact. That's about 38%. 14 of them, or about 20%, are one letter off. 18 of them, or about 26%, are similar. And 11 of them, or about 16%, are unknown. And going back to my hypothesis that Joseph Smith is trying to make it look like they could have been speaking Hebrew and come from essentially the Tower of Babel speaking Hebrew and had their language preserved. I think that these numbers beautifully support that hypothesis, because we have basically 60% of the names are either exact or one letter off. And then another quarter of them, another 26%, are pretty similar.
Yeah.
And then we have this
so that would have been the base of his operation. Instead of just simply making stuff up out of his head, he was going to the Bible to try to say, okay, let me make this look like it's old.
Yes.
And again, that kind of fits Vogel's hypothesis in his book, Abraham Stuff, where he was saying, Vogel and I had lots of good long phone calls where he was saying, well, Joseph Smith was trying to establish that the priesthood itself is a theological concept that came through the fathers. It went back to the original father, who, Adam, of course, and then it came through the fathers. So he was trying to get back as far as he could. So this chart we're looking at right now makes sense of why there's so much similarity to the biblical names. And like you said, we went from linguistics to concepts, which makes good sense from Joseph Smith's point of view, adapting Adam Clark, that it's all going to be somewhat Hebraic / biblical, not only in looks, but in concept. Did I get any of that wrong?
Just all of it. Just kidding.
Dang it, I didn't look through my seer stone, did I?
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta find it.
You gotta polish that thing, dude.
I've got weights over here. Don't those count? They're kind of round. You want to curl some weights while we could work out while we're teaching.
Only if they have bands of brown in them,
Nope, they're all silver steel.
So I wanted to round out the conversation.
Good idea. You're going to try to be objective. Oh, wait, those are objections.
My objective objections. Yeah, that could be a segment on your podcast. Objective objections.
There you go. Yeah. So how would you deal with that first one?
Okay.
What about prophecy?
Yeah.
What about prophecy? Revelation.
So let me just go through.
Not only in the future, but in the past.
Yeah,
that's per Joseph Smith. The Hebrew name, Asaph.
Which name? What?
Joseph, Asaph. It's ancient.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Let me just read these really quick, and then I'll kind of hit them. So here are the objections I could think of. This is what an apologist might say. Some of the names are supposedly given by prophecy. Some are supposedly pre-Babel. Some are anglicizations. And single syllable words aren't as impressive, and some of the similarities are too loose. So of the names being given by prophecy, I think we covered that pretty well with the fact that these prophecies that Ether is giving are humbug.
Yeah, pretty flimsy stuff, thin gruel.
Yeah. That it would not have made sense to any of the listeners, and so it doesn't even make sense that these names would be coming through prophecy.
Okay, now why would someone, hold on, let's go to the second one.
Yeah.
Some are supposedly pre-Babel. Why would that even? How would you get to that if it's still? I mean, pre-Babel doesn't help as an objection, does it?
It does.
How would that help?
So Yared, the name Jared, that's like the 3rd or 4th generation from Adam or something. So this is one of the fathers, like the very first in the generations.
Oh, you're
of time.
thinking in Joseph Smith's day.
In Joseph. Well, so this is if you're taking like biblical biblical literacy, like this is literal.
Okay.
Then you're saying Jared existed before
before Babel because he's leaving at the Tower.
No. This is in the Bible. It's like Adam.
Seth, yeah.
Jared, Enoch, or whatever, whatever.
Okay.
Generations
Jared,
are.
Noah, Cain. Yeah, I'm with you.
So Noah is
Sure.
pre-Babel. Cain is pre-Babel as well.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody could say that, oh, well, those are pre-Babel. So they existed. Like, I'm not going to worry about those names.
Actually, it's pure Babel. Oh, sorry. Pre-Babel. Yeah.
But, one of the problems with that is
Babylon.
that these names have etymologies. So like Yarad means to, like, I think it means to draw up.
I think so.
If I remember right. So like it has an etymology through Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
And since Hebrew and Semitic languages don't exist until like later in time, it's just a problem. It's a problem. Noach, that I can't remember what that means, but
I'm trying to think too. I can't.
And Cain, I can't
remember
remember what that one means.
It's been too long.
I think probably the
I'm
most
impressed. You got the pronunciations right. Noah is not Noah. It's Noah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that.
Yeah.
The ket, not the hay.
Is it probably the most valid objection that I would recognize are these anglicizations, like Egypt. Right. If they're just using whatever word they use for Egypt, and Joseph just renders it as Egypt, like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah,
give it to you. And Jesus Christ. The reason why I don't like that one is just because it's like it's coming through Revelation, and for some reason, nobody in the world knows that Jesus Christ is going to be named Jesus Christ until after, except for people in the writings of Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Except for Nephi and Jacob.
Technically, Christ is not a name anyway.
Right.
That's a,
Yeah.
That's,
Jesus Christos.
Yeah. Jesus isn't even Jesus.
Anointed Savior.
It's supposed to be Joshua.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's more of a description, not a name.
The anointed Savior. Yeah. And so like even Christ itself,
right.
I should have put that in the concepts, Christ, because it is a Israelite
that would fit there.
Judahite concept, this the Messiah, like having an anointed, like that's all over the.
No, they called King Cyrus the Christ.
Exactly,
they really did. I'm not being facetious here. It's in, I can't remember what Old Testament.
Messiah.
It was when he
Isaiah.
was.
It's like 42 or something. Isaiah 42.
Oh, it would, because he was getting ready.
Deutero-Isaiah.
He was helping the Jews rebuild the second temple.
It's in Deutero-Isaiah.
Yeah, it is in Deutero-Isaiah.
Yeah. So
Kobe Townsend probably told me that, and I forgot.
So I don't like putting Jesus Christ as an objection, because like Christos is Messiah, Mashiach. That is another Hebrew concept, and like it didn't exist before the Hebrews, basically.
Right. That makes sense.
This one is single syllable words aren't as impressive. I agree with that, but I think when you get more and more and more of them matching, then it does start to become more impressive. Okay. So we have 12 to 13 names. It depends on how you count Cain, because in Hebrew, Cain is 2 syllables, but in English we just say Cain, 1 syllable. So 12 to 13 names out of the 69 are single syllable. 4 to 5 of those, because we have Cain, are direct hits, and then I can't remember how many. There was like another 6 or 7 of them that were like either 1 letter off or partial hits. So out of the
if someone ever said, well, some similarities are too loose, who cares? That's like the criticisms about Dennis MacDonald's parallels to the Homeric Greeks with the New Testament, of course, you're going to have loose similar. Nothing's ever totally 100% perfectly tight. So what?
Yeah. Well, we'll jump to my list,
Okay.
and I'll show you.
There you go.
I'll show you some
Good
of the ones
summation right there.
that I think are too loose, but whatever.
Okay.
So conclusion: there is too much Hebrew and too little Akkadian.
And it should be flip-flopped.
Yeah.
That truly on the chronological table, that is backwards. Unfortunately for Joseph. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just so unfortunate that he happened to pick a time and place that we have a lot of records from.
A lot of records. I almost am not exaggerating in saying a mountain of records. And they still haven't translated the majority of them.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, over 500,000 Akkadian records,
Yeah.
and several thousand of those are just from the third millennium.
Right. Yeah, just that one era.
Most of them are from second millennium and first millennium.
Mhm.
But there are like thousands of them from the third millennium.
Yeah. They go way back.
Yeah. And yeah, just very unfortunate for him that he picked the exact time and place.
Well, it's tough establishing the priesthood from the fathers.
And then this is kind of a maxim that I always come back to whenever I'm dealing with any issue related to faith, is I say, okay, if you got presented like the exact same data or just similar data by a different faith, by Jehovah's Witnesses or Islam or Hinduism or whatever, what would you conclude? If somebody else presented you similar data, what would you conclude?
Yeah, that's...
And, I'll let you answer that yourself. But for me, I would not come to the conclusion that it was true.
That's a pretty good, that's actually a pretty good maxim, because what that'll do is it will shift the balance at least a little bit. It could help you potentially go this direction from being a little bit more subjective into trying to see it realistically. Okay, don't tell me you would join the church if it was Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
I mean, be just a little real. You're never going to join the Jehovah's Witnesses anyway. But if they showed you this, do you think it'd give you a better chance? I honestly don't think so.
Get your engines going.
Yeah.
And
very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
that's fair. Honestly, that is fair.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a gotcha moment.
No, I think it's a moment of like serious reflection. Apologists, what I found that the goal of apologists often is to they want you to answer yes to one question: is it possible? And if they can get you to answer yes to is it possible, then their work is done. But
that's an interesting point. Yeah.
I am not very interested in what is possible. I'm a lot more interested in what is probable. And so that is why I ask this question.
Yeah. And if I can just reiterate for my audience sake, that's not a cliche, because I've said that several times to my audience as well, because I've done this Bayes theorem type study since I read Richard Carrier and others. And that's not just a cute comment. That really is a viable, that's quite frankly serious. You have to get to that point, not to what is possible, but what is probable, because they aren't the same. It's like we've been told the church wants its apologists to say, look, we got to have an answer. Just give them an answer. And so now the apologists can say, well, they can point to the church essays, to use a silly example. Well, actually a serious example. Well, we've answered that. Well, that's not the point. That's irrelevant. I'm not looking for an answer, right? I'm looking for the best answer. I can give you an answer to anything, but so what?
Because anything is possible.
Because
that's the problem.
But the answer doesn't mean there's value to it.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying Benny is not just throwing out a platitude when he said, well, we're not looking at possible, but probable. I know there's been some people who've tried to make that look like it's, oh yeah, now you're just being cute, or you're just throwing out. No, that's a pretty serious difference. So,
and in my kind of faith journey, what I realized is that I would come up against a particular problem, and for me, like, truth claims were always very essential to my personal like religious experience and connection.
Right.
I know other people, they're very interested in like the social aspects or the emotional aspects. You know, they have a personal connection with God.
All valid, more or less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is awesome. But
Sure.
that was never it for me. It was mostly truth claims for me. And
Come on,
so
fess up. You just wanted to sin, didn't you?
that's the only real truth claim. Let's.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but seriously, you know, that used to be one of the defenses. And nowadays, not only because of how the internet has treated the church, but the way the reaction of the church has been with all these rescue missions and with the essays and all that, the way the apologists are starting to answer stuff, you can see how utterly stupid it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you just want to sin. Now they realize, it's because we've been BSing too much with the history and the theology, like this book of Ether.
Right. And yeah, and so as I would come up against whatever it was, like Joseph Smith having, 30 plus wives, or Brigham Young said this, or Joseph Smith said this, or the Book of Abraham papyri say this, or,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I got to a point where I came up with like a razor, and it was like, okay, if I were to,
Was it Occam's? Did you steal it?
Basically Occam's razor, but it like a variation. And it's like, if I were to cut this, cut the probability on this being for or against, would I end up with greater than 50% probability or less than 50% probability? And the thing is, less likely things do happen, like
Sure,
all the time, but
just
they don't happen most of the time,
right?
Or they would not be less likely. And so if you are coming to an issue and you have to admit, like, yeah, it is less likely that the faithful interpretation is true, and that happens over and over and over and over and over, and every single like situation that you come up against, you have to side with the less likely side, then
that adds up, huh?
Exactly.
I can see Paul over there nodding yes. Yeah.
And so that's why
we need to show him on this.
Do you want to come say hi?
He got a look of terror on his face.
We're gonna have Paul just pop in for a second.
Yeah, just stay calm. You're gonna get your moment of fame. We haven't been on the screen for 2 hours now. I hope they can hear this.
It's just like 20 minutes of an
2.5 hours
slide.
of total silence. I'll never hear the end of that one.
Oh, okay. And then let's jump over to.
Let's go see the StreamYard to see if they're still here and they're listening to us.
Probably more than 50% likely.
All right, let's see.
Oh yeah, we got comments from like 1 minute ago there.
Okay. Well, yeah, but they could be talking to each other, not us.
Well,
they're not even talking about our subject. Now that's typical of chat groups. All right, yeah, we're good. They're ignoring us. That's good. That means it's a healthy chat group.
Okay, so
that means we can say stuff and get away with it. They're not listening to us. All right, so here's this interesting chart.
Yeah, can we collapse this? Okay, great.
There you
go. So here's my table. And I had a document where I had it like a little more in depth, and I had like comments on some of these, but I consolidated it.
It's all good.
All into a table. So here's the name, and then here's if it's a direct hit, and then if it's a partial hit, I have listed what I used to match it partially. And if it's one letter off, then it is also highlighted in blue. It has in X in this column.
You've kind of organized that really good.
Yeah, and then no hit, and then the direct Akkadian.
Well, the problem with this com, you see on number 11, com, you have that there's no hit. That's not true, because this is a future prophecy for the .com processes of the internet. This was a warning. That's a direct hit.
Well, but
I'm just helping out.
We'll have to get everything updated. So yeah, down at the bottom, here's the
here's your total.
The various totals. Yeah, so the direct hits, we don't need to like really go over that too much. I think it might be interesting to look at some of the
Jared, Zared. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so
number 61 there.
Yeah, Jared. We have the names Jared and Zared.
Right.
And so those are, and I count SH as one letter because that's what it is in Hebrew.
Sure. Absolutely.
It is one.
Yeah, the sheen, not the scene.
It is one phoneme when you pronounce it.
Right.
So
Fair
I
enough.
count that as one
After
letter
all,
off.
we are talking Hebrew, not Akkadian.
Right. And you have names like Shalem. And guess what? You have Shelemiah.
Shelemiah, boy, there
So-
you go. Hypercharisticon with the ayah.
Yeah, so you just drop
Ooh, there
the
you go.
Yah.
And that's very Hebraic. So see, you're wrong. There it is, right there.
Yeah, you just drop
Hebrew
the Yah
into-
from
Shalom.
Shelemiah.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
you get Shalom.
Shalom. Uh-huh.
We also have the Hebrew word for peace, shalom.
Sure.
And,
And
that's,
we've got Shibboleth.
yes. So that was
Shiblom.
like Shibboleth
Uh-huh.
and Shalom.
Sure.
That was what I said was close to Shiblom,
Sure.
Shibboleth,
Right.
and same for Shiblon. These are ones that you can definitely quibble with, and you can be like, okay, Shibboleth, Shiblon,
Right.
that's not close enough. It's
Right.
SHIBL,
Sure.
but not close enough. Shiz, you have Shiza, you just drop the A, and you get Shiza.
Mhm.
Same with Shez. That's
And
just
Shiza,
a variation of,
right,
of Shiz.
Zarin and Zeri. You just
Yeah, that
drop
one's
the
one
N.
letter off. You just drop the N. Shul, the Hebrew
Shul,
place of the
Sheol.
dead is Sheol. Sheol. It's like it's almost pronounced the exact same. So I'm like tempted to mark that as one letter off because when you
Yeah.
pronounce it, it is just one
But
phoneme.
that doesn't mean they're,
But
you get into some, right. Yeah, close enough.
yeah,
Remember, this is a very unscientific study. However, there's enough here to merit the concept that Joseph Smith picked the wrong era to put the Jaredites in and explained that they had Hebrew concepts.
well, we're just looking at KJV. We haven't
We're-
even looked at the Akkadian
I
yet.
know it.
So Replakish, you have these names Riblah and Lachish and Kish.
Yep.
Just sounds like Riblah and Lachish.
Pagog, Agog. Yeah.
Oraha, Uriah,
Uriah.
Ogath, Gath,
Yeah. Nahor.
Nahor.
Oh, wait.
So that one is pronounced basically the same. Nahor is the brother of Abraham, and I think
Right.
it's like his grandpa as well.
Yep.
So it's like pronounced the same. So I would almost include that as a direct hit. But I just decided.
Yeah, be safe and go and let her. It's all good though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Libna. That's the moon in Egyptian, according to
Mm.
Joseph Smith Papyrus. I'm just saying.
Morone and Merom.
No, that's moron.
Moron and Merom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morianton,
Morianton, Moriah. No, that one's like maybe a little iffy, but
That's
it's
very iffy.
Moria,
Right.
with
but
a different ending.
yeah.
Um,
All right.
Maha
I'll let you get away with that, sort of, but not really.
and Mahath,
Mahat, yeah.
Libna.
Live and Libna. And liberated. I know. Shut up.
Kim, you have so this is one of the like one syllable ones. Libna is another one syllable, which people would be like, that's not
Right.
Is not like sufficient. So some
Right.
people might like just disregard a lot of those.
Right.
Kim, you have Kir, which is one letter off, and then you also have Kimham. But I don't know how Joseph Smith would have pronounced that. He might have said Chimham, and then you would probably have to throw that one out. It's like too far.
Maybe, I don't know.
Kibroth Hatava,
There it is. It
Jacom.
almost sounds Hebrew. Kibroth Haktava.
Well, it is.
That's why it sounds that way. That's what I thought.
Jacob,
Yeah.
Jacom, Heshlon, Heshmon. That's another one letter off. Gilgal, one letter off.
And Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
But trouble is that goes Akkadian. Do you have it over here? No. Oh, I cannot believe you left
I
out
know, well, look, this
Gilgamesh.
one's
Oh,
Galilee.
Yeah.
Galilee,
I'll let you get away with that crap this time. And is Humbaba over here
Which one? What?
in the Gilgamesh epic?
Oh,
Humbaba?
no.
All right.
But
fine.
isn't that more Sumerian?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Okay,
didn't
Sumerian.
really like dig into the
No,
Sumerian
it's all
very
good.
hard.
I'm just teasing you.
Omer and Emer, that's one letter off. Korah, Koram,
Mhm.
that's one letter off. The K and the C are the same letter in that. They're functionally the same in that. Korahor, Korah, once again, Korah, Hor. You just add an OR on the end of that.
Mhm.
And that's Kohor,
Cohort,
Kohath, Karkor.
Karkor.
Those are. So this one,
All right.
Omnigada. If you say Armageddon, Omnigada, Armageddon, Omnigada.
Yeah.
That one's one of the more like iffy ones.
Well, I
but
mean, they're all iffy, but I see what you're thinking.
yeah.
You're going more with because I mean, even with spelling, all you have to do is be one letter different. It's a completely different word, Or
Yeah.
they can sound the exact same, but be completely different, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean right. Not R-I-G-H-T. I mean R-I-T-E.
You're getting
And they're
homophonic. on me.
homophonic. Yeah. So these are more homophonic.
Yeah.
Anyway, but no,
Yeah,
this
so
is
then
Agash Goshen.
Agash Goshen,
All right.
Ablam, Epsilon. So then in these Akkadian ones, like I said, I only had Koram and Kurum, and then
Right.
Kish and Kish.
Right.
That's all I could
That's
find.
pretty much.
And then
Not much. And Humbaba, you're safe putting that in there too. It wouldn't have matched.
yeah, it's
Because there ain't nothing like Humbaba
there ain't
anywhere.
nothing like
I mean,
Humbaba, baby.
Humbaba, being great in stature and having been born of goodly parents, it's not working. Just saying.
You have
I'm here to
help. And then my Akkadian that I found was Ahuhu.
Ahuhu. Yeah.
Once again, we already went over a couple of these in the slides. Amnigada, Gagada,
And
Ablam, Ablu.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's ones like this, like Ephraim. The closest I could find was Ephutum. Problem with that,
it splits
right, is that it splits the P and the H, but
right.
Ephraim, that PH
together.
is
Ephraim.
one letter.
Ephraim. Yeah.
Yeah, in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Etham, Etumi, Gilgal, Galili, Harthram, Hurushtum. It's like kind of close.
You're starting to remind me of Nibbly.
I was channeling old Hugh on this.
Yeah, that's obvious. Oh, don't hit me! Don't hit me!
Heth, Hatium. So I think that IUM means like inhabitant or like ite.
Oh.
So I think it's like an inhabitant of this land of Hat. I think that's what Hatium means, but I'm not an Assyriologist. Wadad Tutu. I know this one. I looked this one up. Wadad means like slave or servant, and there's a god Tutu. So that's the closest I could get to Jared. Wadad.
That's Israel. Wadad. Interesting.
So then you'd have to be like, yeah, Jared means like slave. That's what Jared means if you're going with that. Kib, you have
Kimnor and
Kibum,
Kimani.
Yeah, Kimania. Kim, Kimania, Kimnor, Kimania. Lib, Libur, Liburum, Maha. You have Ma, which means great, exalted.
That's interesting. Ma means what? Great?
Great or exalted.
Maheru in the Egyptian is the justified or true voice. Maheru, when they're pronounced, when the feather is in the even across with the balance of the judgment. Yeah, they call him Maheru, the justified. So it means what? Great?
Yeah. Great or exalted.
Justified, true voice. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Nimrod, Namaraza, Nimra, Namaraza. Noah, Nu'um.
No,
that one's
don't
like
be a Nimrod. That's not that close. Now you are sounding like Nibbly. Oh, hey, Nibbly and Nimrod.
That's getting dangerously close.
I'm getting bad now. I apologize.
Ur-Ea.
Oh, look, Urea.
Yeah, Ur the city and
trying
Ea.
To make our FM laugh. I wonder if it's working.
And Ea the god, Oraha, Ur-Ea.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just
all right. Well, not much there. So.
Yeah, so a lot of the partial Akkadian ones are like, Whereas I kind of feel like a lot of the partial Hebrew ones, it's like Shelemaiah, Shelem.
Yeah.
Or like Shul.
Yeah.
Shemaiah.
Yeah, this definitely sounds more biblical.
Yeah. So
there you have it.
That
is fantastically interesting.
No,
I mean that is quite the study.
I hope you liked the.
Let's see if did you guys hear any of that? Are you even listening to us now? Did you see any of it? Do you even give a flying flip? Nobody's even here. Where is? Oh wait, Tim Rathbone's here. Debbie Donovan. See, they're talking about Kolob. Did we mention Kolob? What the hell are you talking about Kolob for?
Okay, this is a perfect example. Kolob. Okay, Kokab in Hebrew means star.
Star.
Switch one letter. Kolob is the greatest star. So this is the pattern. So
that Joseph
Smith was doing, where he takes a Hebrew word, and then he'll just like change a letter or make it sound in his mind like it is Hebrew. To be like, this is legit. So that is another part of this whole pattern.
Interesting.
That is occurring in the Book of Ether. Kolob.
He's sharp. That's why I'm having him on this program. Okay. This is, yes. Okay. Yes, they do. So we're safe. We have been blabbing like crazy, and they have not been paying attention, and we got away with pure murder. We have demonstrated, unbeknownst to the audience, that Joseph Smith is a completely true prophet, and that he was 100% linguistically accurate and correct in having non-Hebrew Hebrew Akkadian in the Book of Ether, which is pure baloney.
Yeah. So once again,
It's just interesting.
I want to say, like, I'm not a Hebraicist. I am not an Assyriologist.
Neither am I.
I'm not a professional in anything. This is just me.
And I'm sure the professionals will say, yeah, that was not a good presentation professionally, but that wasn't what he's trying to show.
Yeah. This is just me being like, okay, as far as like what you can find in the Hebrew Bible compared with what's in Ether, and should what we find be there. So in order to believe this, what do you have to disbelieve?
Right. A whole lot.
But I do have to say, I'm happy to
Paul, you want to step in here for a moment? First clap.
Yeah.
Okay, this is our one-man audience back over here. This is our beloved friend Paul. Paul, say hi to the people.
Hey, everybody.
We haven't meant to leave him in the back, but he said he's a backseat driver, so there you go.
Yeah, we're
Backseat professor.
backseat professor.
Woohoo! Well, we got the backyard, the backhoe, and now the back seat. Holy cow, it's never going to get back to normal. Oh, crime.
You need to get like, there are some like primatologists who just study like the vertebrae in primates, and they'll look at all the different fossils and be like, this one comes from Australopithecus, whatever, and so you could get them in, and they can be the backbone professor.
The backbone professor. There you go. The backhand professor. The backbone. The back-a-yo-yo professor. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching this incredible presentation.
Thank you.
When he showed me this in St. George, I was really looking for a way to find a Wi-Fi connection. I said, dude, this is so good. I want to show it right now. But I'm kind of glad we.
Yeah, I'm glad
because your slides were much better than.
I got to make the slides.
Yeah. Those were very helpful. I thought so. Hopefully, Benny has given you something to think well about, and we will have him back. He does have more research that he's been doing that he's been kind of showing me, and so next time I'm either down his direction or he's up here to mine, we are going to do some more lives. So, do you have anything else you'd like to say in closing?
I'm just happy to be here in the Hermetic Lab. Look at this place.
Yes. Yeah, this is the Hermetic Holy.
This is where you want to be in an earthquake so that you die by getting beamed in the dome by like
beaten to death by a bunch of
like
books.
20 nibbly books.
Because it's the only way knowledge is going to get in my thick head is if it's beat in.
Yeah.
I've always fantasized, that you could. Wouldn't it be fun to have a superpower to where you could take a book and put it under your head and absorb it while you sleep?
That's like the hypocephalus.
Yeah.
The hypocephalus.
Yeah.
That means under the head.
Yeah,
in
but
Greek.
I mean for real. I want all the
don't listen
knowledge.
to him. We already figured it out 2,000 years ago in Egypt. Joseph Smith bought one. I don't know if he ever used it, but
right. And besides that, the apologists now are trying to put it into Ptolemaic times.
Ugh.
Idiots. It'll never work.
Yeah,
Steve Smoot, you're wrong. It's never going to work.
Yeah, wait, hand me that triple com on the top there. So you know how when Joseph Smith was he got the gold plates and he's running through the forest and there's the guys chasing him. It's the first time he got him.
Right. If
you were in that earthquake, you could be like one of the guys chasing Joseph Smith and just get like hit in the head with the Book of Mormon. And
hey,
that is possible in this realm.
Did you ever go to the by any chance, did you ever go to the Tanner's bookstore?
No, not before it closed.
Heft that model of the gold
I never got down there.
With the true weight. Joseph Smith running through the woods with those plates under his arm and fighting off people.
Did they have like a 60-pound one or like a?
Didn't happen. No, they had a 60,
like a 200-pound, like
no,
gold.
No,
one.
It was a 60-pound one, and there's no way Joseph Smith ran through the woods and fought people. I'm here to testify. It didn't happen. Nope.
Well, I mean,
I had the world champion wrestler Mark Schultz
Mm.
tell me there's no way in hell he could do it either.
well,
And he's
the
a lot tougher. Now, you might
the
not be as
apologist
tough as you.
answer is he was strengthened by God.
Wonderful.
But I think for me, part of the problem with an answer like
I mean,
that is that as soon as you involve, as a shorthand, I call it a magic wand, then it becomes indistinguishable from any other story involving a magic wand.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem for me.
And this will get back to the excellent point you made too. In all seriousness, the difference between possibility and probability. With probability, there's only one thing that can actually change a probability, and that's actual evidence, not a claim and not a statement.
Claims are not evidence.
Claims are not evidence. They're or a hypothesis or a spiritual invocation, whatever. It's nice. It's nice for faith, but the only way you can change a probability is with evidence. Faith will never do it. You can say, I have faith that when I throw a die 3 times, it's always going to hit 1. But the probability, that can't change the probability on a 6-sided die about how often you would get 1 and how 3 times in a row and how truly, without question, rare that would be. And if it happened, and I'm not trying to disparage any religious miracle here, but if it did happen, you still couldn't say miracle. Because 1 3 times is a probability that it can happen, just not as often. But it can happen, so that doesn't mean it's a miracle. So, boy, that's a long obfuscation for. I'm just saying. Hey, we're having so much fun we can't shut up. But we are going to shut up. Thank you so much for being such a great audience. We will be back for more. Don't forget, tomorrow night is going to be a great night with Jonathan Neville. We are going to manhandle the Mesoamerican model of geography of the Book of Mormon. That does not mean we are going to demonstrate the truth of the Heartland model, but we're definitely going to show the falseness of the Mesoamerican model. And I promise you're not going to want to miss this. Jonathan Neville has, quite frankly, impressed me. I'm serious. I'm going to give this man his voice. He is really good. So, all right, remember, be good, do well, have fun, work hard, stay up late at night. If you're having fun, otherwise go to bed and get your beauty sleep like I do. Be happy, smile. It makes people wonder what you're doing. Make friends, because that's the funnest way to go. Do you have any other maxims you'd like to throw in here, Benny?
Don't
fart in church loudly while the sacrament's being blessed.
What's that? I think one of the classics is be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
Be sure to drink. Oh, what the hell is Ovaltine? Am I not old?
It's from A Christmas Story. You remember he gets the decoder?
No, tell me about it. Oh,
well,
for the love of Samuel.